Hey, this is Scott Spears, and I'd like to welcome you to a jam-packed edition of The Exchange. It's going to be a fun one for sure, joined by Matt Morgan, 40th Treasurer of the United States, Mary Ellen Withrow, and stand-up comedian, writer Mike Larsen, written for some great people, Ellen DeGeneres, whole bunch, great group. We're here today. Now, Mike, since we saw you last, you have done some interesting things. We all came down to Columbus, saw you perform down at the comedy club, #comedy club, and what did you think of that night?
Oh, it was so great that you guys came down. And Mary Ellen, I have to tell you, the comedians, I have heard so many comments from those comics about meeting you.
Really?
Specifically Layla, who's the young woman, hilarious, from Dayton.
Yeah.
And, Layla's act can be a little blue.
Uh-huh.
And she was so thrilled to meet you, and that you kind of gave your blessing that she should just do her job.
That's
she should do her act.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many times every time I've talked to her since then, she has said, that was one of the best nights of my career so far, meeting Mary Ellen and having a woman of that stature tell me to just do my thing. And, it was great. It was really great.
We had such a good time.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And also Jeff Jenna, who headlined, and Jeff is a very conservative Republican. His act is not political at all, but is a conservative and a Trump supporter. And he also said that it was like meeting royalty. So that was really neat. That was neat.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
Right.
It was a great night.
That was a
It
fun
was
night.
a fun night.
We loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a lot. Now, when you perform at a club like that, what's it like for you? Is it nerve-wracking?
Well,
you said you always get nervous.
I'm always nervous, but like, is that me or you? Okay, but now I realize that nerves is just part of the game, and that that I tell myself that it's not fear, it's excitement, which feels the same in our belly, right? The butterflies are the same. So yeah, you're always nervous. Partly because it can go badly, and when friends are in the audience, that puts a little more pressure because you don't want to stink up the joint when your friends are in the crowd. And you want it to go well. And in a situation like that where I invited the other comedians that night, so you feel a little more responsibility, but I love it. And in fact, I'm working on writing a piece about what it feels like on stage looking at an audience. And kind of as a speaker.
Yes.
When you look at the audience, it's an interesting thing, especially when maybe you have them at a point where you know what's coming and you know it's going to be good, but they don't yet. And it's kind of this fun, kind of sometimes frightening moment, but yeah.
Yeah.
It was a fun night and a great club, and everybody had a good time. It was a lot of fun. So hopefully people will be able... Are a lot of people coming out for comedy shows these days?
It's pretty popular. That club is really growing, #comedy club. They always have good shows, and, it's just a little storefront, right?
Yeah,
it wasn't a fancy club at all, but the people who own it are really great. A young comedian, this woman... who I think is around 30 years old, is one of the owners, and she's fantastic. People are doing pretty good for comedy,
Good. One thing I want to talk about, Mary Ellen recently gave a speech on Sacagawea here locally, and Mike, you helped her with some comedy. Now, how did you go about this? What's the process like?
Well, the process is that Mary Ellen sent me some pages of remarks that she had done last time she spoke about Sacagawea. And honestly, the jokes I sent you weren't about Sacagawea at all, I don't think. There may have been one or two little references to Sacagawea. It was mostly because you said you wanted things at the very top, which is usually where you do. You want... The audience appreciates when a speaker just shows them right off the bat that it's going to be a fun evening. So just a couple really, really simple little humorous things. I really have fun writing for other people, especially for someone like Mary Ellen who is so different than me. It's not writing for another man. It's writing, not only a woman, but someone who has a different life and is of a different generation. It's really fun for me to write, to think of what would work in this situation, but also when I write for myself, I'm very critical of myself.
I bet you are.
But when I write for someone else, I just write them and give them to you. You do with them what you want, and it doesn't matter. No skin off my back if you choose not to use them. So I really love that. That's probably of all the many types of writing I do, I think one of the things I enjoy the most is writing jokes for somebody else.
The one that they enjoyed, I think, all of it, but the one where I said when I spoke to students, they thought we went to school together.
Exactly, yeah.
And the other one that they really laughed at was I said, people started calling me Norman, and they really enjoyed that one. Yeah. And then I did the one about the 1983, where with the Columbus Club.
Yes.
Part about the Columbus.
What was it? In fact, I can tell you what it was. It was right. It was something with your story was that you were invited to speak to the Columbus Club, and they told you had to come in through the side door. Right?
Yeah.
And where was it? I thought I had. Anyway, I don't know, but you said it was so much for the glass ceiling. You couldn't even come in the damn door. Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, they like that. Yeah.
You know what's age? Obviously, the joke about Sacagawea, an age joke. Can you always get a laugh there with age?
Self-deprecating. Especially if you are not a performer, you are there. Mary Ellen's there as this esteemed member of the community. So, honestly, the bar is pretty low for comedy, right? All you have to do is show some humanity, some humility. So anytime you can make a something self-deprecating about yourself, especially in so much of comedy is about status, right? Whether we're punching down or whether we're punching up. And so anytime we can direct that on ourselves, the audience just loves it. That is usually, with most speakers, especially with esteemed people, usually the people I write for are elected office holders or CEOs or people of some stature. And I always tell them that if you can direct jokes on yourself, you bring your status down, you raise the audience's status up, and that's just great for all of us. It puts us more at a level.
Yeah.
So, so whether it is a joke about being the old person in the room, or whether it's a joke about whatever, your hairline or being out of shape or whatever it is in your world that kind of corrects that status off the top, that always works. I always tell people when you write, and sometimes with men of some stature, they're very uncomfortable. They've spent their whole life puffing themselves up. And when you say, no, believe me, they will love you more if you bring yourself down a little bit. And it's very difficult very often for them.
The thing that would always get me is when I was listening to them. This is usually happening while I'm running for office, too. They start talking about their service in the military.
Right.
And I would just get pissed off right away.
Right. Yes.
That would do it. That would do it. The military service.
Right.
Right.
Yes. Well, and very often these politicians who were, maybe, and good for them, they were in the service. I have all respect for that. But, they were maybe just a private or whatever. But when they're running for office, they make it sound like they were General MacArthur.
Yes. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
It's something interesting. Can you always get a joke? Because I thought about this after the comedy club, because your act and Jeff's were not really blue or off color at all. The women were a little more off color that night, and it seemed like they were having a more difficult time. Now maybe it was just the room.
Well, in that case, also it has to do with experience. I mean, Jeff has 50 years of comedy experience. I probably have 25 years. Those women are 2 years into it.
Right. But is it? I mean,
but part of it is, I'm not blue in the sense that I don't talk about sex very much. Hardly at all. I don't even know if I do at all. I do swear sometimes in my act, and some people might find that blue. I also talk about things that some people would find blue just because I talk about politics. I talk about religion. Sometimes that is off-putting to people. Mm-hmm. And I've been in crowds where people can be very, dirty talking about sex, and they do great. I get up and I talk about politics, and the audience is like, no, we don't want to hear that. Yeah. So it's hit and miss. You never know. But mostly it is experience. I mean, I have done thousands and thousands of shows. I know how to read a room at this point. Yeah. I've had bad shows. Certainly I've had shows where I walked off stage and thought, that could have been better. But it's been quite a while since I've bombed, where people just right off the bat hate me. And it's usually because I said something early on in the show that upset them. But
well, it was interesting because early on in that show, and every comic that night used it, was when the MC got up and did a joke about abortion. And boy, you could have heard a pin drop in the room after that joke. And then you used it, Jeff used it, everybody else used it for how poorly it went over in the room that night.
Yes, and I will say that it shows you the immense respect I have for Tanya, who, by me giving her grief on stage. If she was a comic I did not respect, I would have let it go.
Really?
But because I have such great respect for Tanya, she's such a good comedian. She is not normally edgy at all. And when she did that, first off, she messed up the joke, and so it came out just crass and bad. She screwed up the words a little bit.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that she appreciated that by me calling her out on stage, that is the sign of ultimate respect from a comedian.
Yeah.
Saying, we've been there.
Yeah.
But yes, she, I mean, you want comedians to say whatever they want to say. You don't want to censor people. I mean, even if it's someone there's people who are very, very, right wing, or they're misogynist, or they're gay bashing, or whatever, that I don't like their humor at all. But as a comedian, I want them to do what they want to do. They should reveal themselves to us, and they should take chances, and they should push the envelope. We want that. And that's what I was saying, what Layla said about meeting you, and you telling her you do your act. But the reason it's risky is because it could go, and in that case, it thunked. But I will say this for Tanya, a minute later she was getting laughs again. She got the crowd back. She could have very easily lost them, not only for herself, but for the whole show. Yeah. But she got them back. So, yeah.
Now, when it comes to delivering a joke, you talked about the wording. How important is the wording and the delivery? I mean, if it's on the paper, is it necessarily, could it be screwed up from the paper to the room?
Oh, yeah, but not just obviously the words are very important. And for a joke, in general, you want to use the fewest words you can possibly use in order to convey your message. You want it to be, the two magic words in comedy are brevity and levity, right? You need funny, and you want it to be short. You want it to be as brief as possible. So you don't want any extra words. Now, having said that, some people, whether it's a comedian style or the joke, sometimes you need some extra words, like in a song, right? To stay on the beat, or and a lot of that just comes from from doing it a long time and kind of figuring that out. What works for me? What, some jokes work great to just, boom boom, and some work better to have a little long story and have a mislead. You want the audience to think you're going this way. That's what. If I can get really technical about comedy, there was this Nobel Prize winning astrophysicist named Richard Feynman, right? He's written on all sorts of things. But he said a thing about humor that he talks about the kick of the discovery, and it is the millisecond where your brain realizes it's been tricked. And it is what brings joy to human beings, is the kick of the discovery. It's opening up a birthday present. It's seeing an old friend. It's getting a joke. It's a jump scare in a movie, and then you feel silly for laughing at the jump scare. But it's that. So when we write jokes, the ideal is if the whole audience gets that kick at the exact instant. Then you've been in a room, whether it's a comedy club or a movie, where something happens and the whole audience just convulses at the exact same, and that's great. But then there are other times where I'll be telling a joke and maybe these people get it and these people aren't there yet, they get it, and then you have kind of a ripple effect. Both are fine. But when I'm writing a joke, I'm always looking for, how can I delay the laugh to that precise point where everybody gets it, but not push it past that point where people get it too early. So that's where kind of the wording, and sometimes maybe I need another 2 syllables in there to bring the slow people up without losing, So for me, that's kind of like the algorithm of jokes that I really love. I'm just kind of a nerd that way, but I really love kind of examining that, and how can we manipulate the audience so that not only they laugh, but they laugh at the exact point that I want them to laugh.
So, Mary Ellen, when you got the list of jokes, how did you decide what you wanted to use and what you didn't want to use?
Well, it's the ones that made me laugh.
Ones that made you laugh.
Right, yeah.
Now, do you write them down? Do you memorize them? Do you practice them beforehand?
Yeah, I laughed that one where they called me Norman. I laughed about that all afternoon. I thought that was so funny.
Well, you told us the story that when you first ran for office, the Marion Star wouldn't even refer to you as Mary Ellen. They called you Mrs. Norman.
Right.
And I think the joke was pretty simple. It was like, I just don't feel like a Norman, or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's hardly even a joke. It is just true, right? It's how, and I think that's why it works, is because everyone feels that way.
Yeah.
So do you memorize them, Mary Ellen?
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
But you still had it written down. So if you forgot,
yes,
I assume.
I had it with me. Yeah.
And jokes, it is important to, or laugh lines or whatever. It is important to kind of feel them in your bones, because you are reading the room while you're doing it, and kind of getting the sense of when's the right time to do it. So just reading them like off a cue card, if you've never seen it before, it's really hard to get it right.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
Matt, what makes somebody 21 laugh? Same thing as somebody at a different age, you think?
I would assume so. I think humor is pretty universal for the most part. It's just, everybody's got a little bit of a different kind of sense of humor, but I assume it lines up with somebody in all age.
References are different.
Yeah.
But the humor is what? Do you have favorite comedians now that you like?
I like a lot of comedians. I like Bill Burr. I like Gabriel Iglesias. Tom Segura is funny.
Well, it's interesting because Bill Burr and Gabriel Iglesias are very different.
Yeah.
Gabriel is, I don't know if you know him, he's a very heavy Mexican-American guy. He goes by Fluffy.
Yep.
And his act is kind of fluffy. It's very easy, kind of light. It's fluffy. It's not terribly biting. Whereas Bill Burr is very biting and in your face, and a punch to the mouth kind of. Both are very funny.
And George Carlin. I like
George
too.
Carlin, yeah.
As a matter of fact, Jeff Jenna, when we went and saw him, the way his stage presence reminds me a lot of George Carlin.
And you could see he's from that generation. I mean, Carlin would have been, 20 years older than him or whatever, but most of us of a certain generation grew up with George Carlin. You probably remember George Carlin.
Yeah, I do.
And was just, he had this sing-song, this very lyrical delivery to him where you get into the rhythm of it, so that sometimes it's not even that that it is the word that's making you laugh. It's just that he gets you into this rhythm, and you know.
You know, it did seem, though, as if there was a generational difference in comedy. A big one. That doesn't seem to be happening now, though. Maybe it is, and I'm just not paying attention to it. But when you went from the Phyllis Dillers and Joan Rivers to the Ellen DeGenereses and Roseanne Barrs, it seemed like it was a lot different. It seemed Phyllis Diller and Joan Rivers were all about self-deprecation. Now, Joan Rivers changed as time went on, but Ellen DeGeneres was monologues. Good, funny monologues.
Yes, well, the different one, especially for them, women in comedy have always had a different path than men, and so for someone like Phyllis Diller and Joan Rivers, who were in a absolutely male-dominated business, they almost had to be self-deprecating. It was the only way they were going to get stage time, is if they made fun of themselves more than they made fun of men, because they also made fun of men. Ellen was very true to her. I mean, remember, we know Ellen now as a person who is out but most of her career she was not gay. I mean, when she was, but she was not publicly. So her act was very asexual and was very silly. So, yeah, generationally now.
Maybe even more so than men, because I'm thinking of, a lot of people say that really the first person to stand up on a stage and tell jokes by themselves was Bob Hope. And by the time the George Carlins and that group, they kind of looked down on Bob Hope and what he did. And Henny Youngman and that whole generation was completely different from George Carlin and that whole group.
I mean, Bob Hope wasn't. Bob Hope was at the end of vaudeville. Remember, vaudeville went on for 80 years before Bob Hope.
Bob Hope stuck around till the 90s telling those jokes.
He was the first one we knew on television, but there was vaudeville. And like almost everything of any culture of any importance in America, it was started by black people, right? So the real comedy started in like the honky tonks, and so you really do get that. The real roots of comedy tended to come from jazz clubs and from forbidden places where you weren't supposed to do that sort of thing. But I think that's where comedy then in many ways was easier, because there were so many taboos. All you had to do is hint at sex. You didn't have to, and people were like, oh, shocked that I can't believe he suggested that. Yeah. Now it's very hard to shock people. It's harder to rely on shock humor now, because we're all, we're 40 years past the sexual revolution, and people are much more open about the things they talk about. So I think you have to find new ways to tweak people and to find new material. But Bob Hope also, and this is interesting, little stand-up comedy history. The term stand-up stand-up comedian was specifically designed for a person like Bob Hope. It was a person who stood up and read jokes, usually written by other people. So there were gag writers who made their living in vaudeville, who wrote gags, and they sold them and the comedians often used each other's jokes because they were gags, and so their job was to stand up and read jokes. The what we would say modern comedian, when we got to the era of George Carlin, but before George Carlin, say Lenny Bruce, Mort Saul. Have you seen The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel? That show? Such a good show. That's such a great time. It shows that period in the 50s when people were actually getting up and speaking honestly and it was kind of came out of the folk scene, you know. That's probably more where what we do now was born. It wasn't about reading jokes. It was about, you know, revealing a little bit about yourself, about talking about the hypocrisy of the world. So it became, you know, that's probably more where people are, which is why, and, you know, everyone looks at, their young comics look at me like, what the heck are you doing on stage, old man? You know, your time's over.
Oh, no.
You know, like anything. I'm not literally, but I feel like anything, like in music too.
Yeah.
You know, a great, you know, a rock star from 40 years ago. You know, Elton John is not the same as a rock star now.
Yeah.
You know, even though they got a lot from that. So part of that is normal. And personally, I really love that I have to change my game constantly to stay relevant for young audiences. Most when I perform at a club, it is usually with audiences that are in their 20s and 30s.
Really?
And so I have to be relevant to them.
Yeah.
I can't do humor that I did 15 years ago because it just feels dated and, you know, passe.
Well, you know what's interesting? I was talking because I was wondering who do kids in high school, who do they pay attention to? And I was just shooting out some of the names of people today that you had written for or worked with. And what I found interesting is I thought the one, because we had a conversation once that people would, Ryan Reynolds is the most relevant one now. And so I put him out there to these high school kids. I said, you know, Ryan Reynolds, Whoopi Goldberg, Ellen DeGeneres, Drew Carey. And you know, most of them said Whoopi Goldberg. And that probably has something to do with being on television every day, even though Drew Carey is.
Is Drew Carey like the guy from like The Mask and like that?
No, that's Jim Carrey.
Price is Right.
Drew Carey hosts Price is Right now. No, Jim Carrey was The Mask.
But everybody knew Whoopi.
Whoopi's an icon, though. I don't even know.
Yeah.
I bet most people don't even think of Whoopi as a comedian. She was never really a stand-up comic. She was even her like early stand-up special, she did characters. She's always been more of like a character person.
And people knew Ellen.
Yeah, but you know what's funny? Because even when I come, the only time I ever hear my credits is when I come on your show. And you mentioned,
I was a little light in the beginning there.
I appreciate that. I don't really, to me that's living in the past, you know. But all of those people, when I wrote for them, all had wonderful reputations, you know, whatever, Ellen, you know, and you know, the media grinder, you know, kind of builds people down. So now it's like, you write for that person, you know. It's like, well, wait a minute. When I wrote for her, the world loved Ellen.
Well, you know what's funny about that? You know what's funny about that is because when I kept getting Ellen and Whoopi were the one, and Ryan Reynolds was honestly not. It was there, but not.
And Ryan's not a stand-up comedian. He's a comedic actor, but he never did stand-up.
Right. But what was interesting to me is I thought, well, maybe this has to do with being on a talk show or being on television every day. So I threw out Bill Maher. Nothing for Bill Maher.
No, for young people.
For high school
Why would
kids.
they know who Bill Maher is?
Well, I didn't realize that The View skewed so young, and the Ellen DeGeneres show skewed young, and Bill Maher's work all skews older, I guess.
I think the only person on The View I can tell you...
Maybe it's on HBO. Maybe that's the reason.
Is Whoopi Goldberg.
But everybody...
And part of it is her name is Whoopi. I mean, that's an easy name to remember. Her...
she's also got like an iconic kind of style.
She has just her... If you just saw a silhouette of Whoopi with her hair... You would know, that's Whoopi Goldberg, right? It's kind of different. Well,
I was surprised, really was surprised when the Barbara Walters documentary came out and we were talking about that. People know her, and she's dead.
Oh, interesting.
You know, people know Barbara, and actually they're going to air, by the way, hey, if you want to know, you don't have to get the app that it's on. ABC Network is actually going to air that documentary now. And I think it's because of the popularity that it must have had on Hulu, I think is where it was.
Really?
And she was such a groundbreaking journalist. I mean, she was she was the woman journalist, when I remember it, when I was a young person.
The names that they get are interesting. And then some that they don't get is interesting. We got to take a break, though. We're going to come back. Much more conversation right after this. This is Scott Spears for WGH Radio, and we just had a delicious pizza here at the Berwick in Greencamp, Ohio. You've got to come here and have some pizza. And guess what? I used to work in the bank that is connected to the Berwick where you can sit and eat. Look at this bank. I used to work here many years ago. It hasn't changed very much since I've worked here. What a way to come back into nostalgia here in Greencamp, Ohio, and take in this great bank. And one of the great things you can do here is eat in the vault. Can you imagine that? We're going to go in this vault and see what's in here. Now, here's the thing. This vault has been shut for many years. And before I came, I happened to remember the combination. This vault has been shut for years. What are we going to find in here after all these years? Come with me. Let's see what's in the vault here in Greencamp, Ohio. My goodness gracious. Here's the vault. Well, holy mackerel. Mary Ellen Withrow, what are you doing in the vault?
I'm just sitting here waiting on money to come in.
Hey, Scott Spears back with Matt Morgan, 40th Treasurer of the United States, Mary Ellen Withrow, and stand-up comic and writer Mike Larsen. So glad to have him here. Before we move on to our first current event this week, talking about comedy and having a fun time doing it, Mary Ellen, do you want to tell one of the jokes that Mike gave you?
Well, yes, I can. I was trying to get my name in the paper when I was running for school board, and they wouldn't print my name, Mary Ellen Withrow. It had to be Mrs. Norman Withrow. And I was pretty upset about it, really. And so it was printed Mrs. Norman Withrow until 1976. People started calling me Norman. And I just thought that was so funny.
Now, is that a good delivery, Mike?
Oh, yes.
Good delivery?
Yeah, and what makes a good delivery is honesty and we are there with Mary Ellen when she knows that. We know that what she's saying, and it's true. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not like if I told the story of Mary Ellen Withrow and said they used to call her Norman. It just wouldn't be. There's a degree of separation that makes it less meaningful.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Sacagawea joke, Mary Ellen?
You mean when I talked to
Yeah.
the student? Yeah, I told that to my daughter and her husband, and they laughed out loud.
That's great. That's great.
It was when I speak to the students about Sacagawea, they think I went to school with them.
Yeah. Which is probably true, because kids, we don't know. Old is old.
Right.
Yes.
That is so true.
Yes.
Yeah. And then after the thing was
there you
over,
go.
this woman came up to me and said, I never heard of Sacagawea.
Well, you know what's interesting about that joke is I wondered if they would know who Sacagawea was to get the age reference.
Did because of the program.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting. So that's and good delivery and how you put it. Is it different how a comic would deliver a joke than a speaker?
Oh, well, it depends. There are people, there's people that I have written for who had such great delivery. The politician, the woman that I work for, the most Jackie Spear.
Oh,
Jackie
yes.
is such a great speaker that I could write her anything and she would make it better than I wrote. And then, of course, writing for like a professional comic, writing for Drew Carey or Ellen, they are masters at it. So things are always funnier when they come out of their mouth. In fact, for Ellen, I wrote a joke for her that became her kind of big joke for about a year. And here's the other thing. When you write jokes, especially about something that are topical, it could be brilliant in the moment. But then just a few months later, it already sounds old and dated. Mm-hmm. And so at the time, around the time that Ellen came out, was around the time that Prince, the singer, dropped his name and was being referred to as the artist formerly known as Prince. Do you remember that?
Uh-huh.
So I had written a joke for Ellen that where she introduced herself. Hello, if you don't know me, I am the lesbian formerly known as Ellen.
Hey, I've seen that one.
Oh, and that joke killed for her for about 6 months.
Really?
And then it became like, it's an old joke. And then other people started stealing it, and what happens, but that's fine. But for that moment, I found the joke that was absolutely the perfect joke for her for that moment in time.
Yeah.
You know, but then you do something, but you know, especially with topical humor, like when you write for like late night television and we write about the news of the day, sometimes that joke might have a shelf life of a day.
Yeah.
You know, the next day it might not. People have done it, especially in the world of Trump. Something weirder happened the next day, and they're like, "You're still talking about that." So,
Speaking of late night television, the 77th annual Primetime Emmy Awards was on Sunday. The Late Show with Stephen Colbert took home its first Emmy win for Outstanding Talk Series, despite having earned well over 30 nominations over the past 10 years. In an emotional speech Colbert gave, this is what he said that night after winning the Emmy. In September of 2015, Spike Jonze stopped by my office and said, "Hey, what do you want to do? What do you want this show to be about?" Stephen recalled of a conversation with his friend. I said, "Spike, I don't know how you could do it, but I'd kind of like to do a late night comedy show that was about love." He continued, "And I don't know if I ever figured that out, but at a certain point, and you can guess what that point was, I realized that in some ways we were doing a late night comedy show about loss. But ultimately, Stephen thinks he didn't stray too far from his original goal. That's related to love," he explained, "because sometimes you only truly know how much you love something when you get a sense that you might be losing it. 10 years later, in September of 2025, my friends, I have never loved my country more desperately." Adding a "God Bless America," Stephen ended his speech by paraphrasing the late Prince's song. Hey, this is a great transition. "Let's go crazy. Stay strong, be brave," he said, "and if the elevator tries to bring you down, go crazy and punch a higher floor." Well, Stephen Colbert, since this cancellation at CBS, taking home all the awards, getting all this, and he got a standing ovation when he came out to present that night. What has happened here? Has CBS made a terrible, terrible mistake? Is Stephen Colbert bigger now than he ever has been because of what they did? I know you're a fan, Mary Ellen.
Yes, I think it's done a lot for him because everybody's behind him and showed such support for his audiences when they came, and then this program. Yeah.
And he's such a class act.
Yes, he is.
I mean, even at the Emmys, I was expecting, maybe wanting, a diatribe against Trump. He's earned it, right? He could have used that platform to rip Trump apart. He never mentioned his name.
Or CBS.
In fact, nobody mentioned his name the entire show. Which, people made some political comments. They never said his name, which was very interesting.
Well, I think that was purposeful, though, because of the Charlie Kirk thing. I think that I read a story that said that they had all sort of agreed because of that they were not going to do political humor that night.
Well, maybe.
But I thought it was interesting.
People don't. It's not like there's a meeting among comedians that we're not going to say things. So, but yeah, maybe that was part of it. But I was very impressed by just how classy Colbert was.
He thanked
for
CBS.
The whole thing. Yes, right.
Yeah, he thanked CBS. I thought that's who would get the shot, and they didn't.
Right.
He thanked them.
No.
Yeah. And the next night after it happened, you know, I thought he was going to really say some bad things about Trump.
Right.
He said, "I just don't like him."
Yeah.
Well,
He underplayed it.
Yeah.
Right,
Well,
which was great.
What I mean, but isn't CBS really here the big issue?
Yes.
I mean, Trump cannot fire Stephen Colbert. CBS got into, I mean, Jimmy Kimmel's still around because he's at ABC, and Jimmy Fallon's still around, and they're still doing Trump jokes. Seth Meyers is still doing them on NBC, but CBS was in the middle of a merger. Colbert went after them for the merger. People seem to forget that part. Now, yes, I'm sure Trump figured into this because the merger had to be approved, or the buy had to be approved. But, I mean, CBS, he did go after them in regard to their lawsuit paying Trump, and that's really probably what
well, and it wasn't just any merger. It was a merger with Ellison, who is this right-wing
so he probably wouldn't have survived
anyway, so they wanted to go after him. But CBS also has this historical horrible track record for censoring comedians. Yeah, they canceled the Smothers Brothers 50 years ago because they were making fun of Nixon.
See, it goes away. Things don't change.
No.
But I just thought, you can go out. The first standing ovation he got when he presented was, I think, for, hey, you've been canceled wrongly.
Yes.
And here we are.
Yes.
But when he won for Best Talk Show, and he's never won in 10 years, and that speech, that's why I read pretty much the whole speech, more or less, except for the family members he thanked. That is a great speech.
Yeah, I hadn't realized until that night that he had never won. I had assumed he would have.
Yeah, I thought he had to.
Yeah, that surprised me.
Yeah.
A lot of nominations, but no wins.
Right.
Matt, what do you think? Did he get the last laugh on him? Is he getting the last laugh on them as he's on the farewell tour here?
It would seem that way. I mean, I think they kind of messed up. I mean, it seems that Colbert has now gone up in the ratings. It seems like they put this man on even higher on top of the charts than he was previously. They kind of shot themselves in the foot on this one.
I mean, is there any chance at this point that another network is not going to hire him? Of course they are. I mean, even if it's streaming platform, whatever it is.
I'd love to know what his offers have been.
Yeah, right. He will definitely do
Yes.
something, whether or not it's late night, I
Yes.
don't know, but he can certainly write his own ticket, you would have to think.
I mean, honestly,
I think CBS would back out now if they could.
I
They
don't-
can't, but
Oh.
I don't know. I don't know that he will, but I mean, he could definitely just like start up his own podcast at this point.
He could do it.
I mean, he'd probably make more money that way. There's
Right.
no overhead, and all the sponsorship money goes to.
yeah, but you know
Right.
something he said that night, which I thought was very interesting, is he wanted the late night tradition to continue.
Right.
And he did not want CBS to do away with late
Yeah,
night
right.
altogether. So I think there is something to that. And when you watch those late night shows, the ones that are left, like Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers and Jimmy Kimmel that are on networks, they are different than a podcast or
Yeah.
anything like that. There's still audiences and big crowds and bands, and
Right.
that would be sad if that went away, Mary Ellen.
Right.
I mean, why does that have to go away? It's a little more budgety, but it's entertaining.
Well, I don't think podcasts are that interesting.
No, I certainly don't. Well, they've got writers
Do you
on
listen
these
to
shows.
podcasts? I don't either,
No.
and I have many friends who have them, and I'm on them all the time as guests. But I know people love them. My wife listens to them all day. A lot of people love them. I'm not.
I'm on a lot of them too, but
Yeah.
Well, the making fun of a network or bosses is always something that's fun, and you can't do that with a podcast. And it just, there is no audience, and there is no band, and there's no big production. You could do it with a basic talk show that used to be filmed in a studio, but if it was meant to have a live, it's like doing a sitcom. Without an audience, without that sort of thing.
It's
Just
different.
Yeah, it just doesn't work. Well, I'll tell you what, Kamala Harris's book is right around the corner, and this just keeps getting uglier and uglier. Now, I'm going to read the same story we did last week because there's been an update to this. Kamala Harris refused to tell Joe Biden he should not run for re-election and now admits it was a colossal mistake. In her memoir, 107 Days, out next Tuesday, Harris said it was recklessness that drove so many people around Biden to defer to the aging president and his wife. It's Joe and Jill's decision. We all said that, like a mantra, like we'd all been hypnotized, Harris writes. Well, was it grace or was it recklessness? In retrospect, I think it was recklessness, Harris writes. The stakes were simply too high. This wasn't a choice that should have been left to an individual's ego, an individual's ambition. It should have been more than a personal decision. The passage appears in an excerpt of Harris's forthcoming book, which she shared with The Atlantic ahead of its September 23rd release. And she also talks about how Joe Biden's crew was never very happy with her. Harris, whose public image suffered during her vice presidency, accuses Biden's staff of adding fuel to the negative narratives that sprang up around me as she toiled away, continually seeking to demonstrate her loyalty. She had battled Biden for the nomination in the 2020 race and was never fully accepted by his inner circle, Harris indicates. Because I'd gone after him over busing in the 2019 primary debate, I came into the White House with what we lawyers call a rebuttal presumption. I had to prove my loyalty time and time again, she writes. The dynamic contributed to her unwillingness to confront Biden, who was 81 at the time, about his re-election bid, Harris suggests, although she does come to his defense over allegations involving his mental fitness. On his worst day, he was more deeply knowledgeable, more capable of exercising judgment, and far more compassionate than Donald Trump on his best. But at 81, Joe got tired. That's when his age showed in physical and verbal stumbles, Harris says. Now, the follow-up to this is Biden's people aren't happy. And they are out. Well, but they're out there, and now they're hitting her, and they're saying, she wanted attention, and this is her trying to save face.
Wait. A politician wanted attention? Clutch my pearls. Who ever heard of such a thing?
Well, but the problem is with this, as we talked about last week, that one of the biggest ads that came out during the election was her on The View when Sunny Hostin's, Trump's campaign used it all over the place, when she said, what would you do different than Joe Biden had done? And she said nothing. And they used it, and they said that was a big problem. So she, did toe whatever line they had her towing.
Yeah.
Wasn't good, I guess. And I guess they're saying that this is the Biden team's actual quote. They're saying Kamala Harris was the main cause of her own problems after excerpts have been released. She was the main cause of her own problems.
Well, I thought she did a wonderful job.
So do I, and Biden never should have run for re-election. I love Joe Biden. I thought he was a great president. He got us out of that first disastrous Trump administration. Unfortunately, he stuck around too long, and he caused a second Trump administration, and he has to own that. I say that with complete love for Joe Biden. But there is a time when you have to put the country over your personal ambition, and I blame Jill Biden too. I think Jill Biden was driving that ship and she could have. She is the only person on earth who could have. We hear that Obama talked to him. Plenty of people talked to him, and Nancy Pelosi, and he wouldn't hear it. And she has every right to be upset about. She did the best anyone could possibly do under those circumstances, but she had 100 days at that point.
But you know what I think the problem is? As the excerpts have leaked out, and now she's going to hit the talk show circuit next week, and we'll see what she says. I think the problem is that during the election, this is what people were saying. That, you were an unlikable vice president, and he has not put you in the best light, and she's deny. Well, apparently it was that way. And, Joe Biden's fit for the job. He can go out there. He's great. During the election, he's great. I wouldn't do anything different. Well, now I would have done things different. He wasn't exactly fit. He did get tired. It was reckless to run again. I think this is why the Democratic Party right now is having a horrible time with their approval rating, because they say something when the election's going on and they turn on each other in such a severe way when it's over. I mean, these are not nice comments at all about Joe Biden.
Yeah, I don't
From his vice president.
It doesn't bother me at all, and I love both of them, so I have no problem with them being honest. But
were they honest during the election? That's the problem.
Well, she was in a position, when she was in that View interview, she wasn't saying that there was nothing she would have done as far as telling him not to run for office. They asked policy-wise. Now, what could have possibly been the right answer to that? If she said, I disagree with his immigration policy and I think we should close the border, she doesn't believe that. Policy-wise, I didn't have a lot of problem with Biden's policy. I don't.
No, but
So what was she supposed to say? Like, suddenly go after his policies? They would have used that against her.
Well, I don't know that the biggest issue in the election was policy. It was his age. And now
that's what they asked. The thing you just read was there anything he did as president that you would not have done?
Right. No, but most of her swipes are at him running again,
right,
and calling it reckless, and that's what's been getting all the press. But at the time, if she was asked, she said no. He was fine. He's good.
But what other possibility, while she was sitting vice president, and he was running for office, if you remember, they set up that early debate with Trump because the Biden people were so sure that Biden was going to clean his clock and he was going to remove all doubt that he was too feeble to serve a second term, and then he came out and was horrible. I remember watching that and saying, oh no. So what could she have said? That get out of the way. It'd be like J.D. Vance now saying the obvious about Trump. If J.D. Vance said clearly the man has lost his mental faculties, he is not able to be president. That is the truth. And J.D. Vance's biography someday will, well, who knows J.D. Vance, but that would be the honest thing for him to say in the future. He can't say that now.
No, but isn't that what she's saying?
She can, but she couldn't then.
No, but she's saying we should have said this to him, but this was too important. This election was too important. We should have went to him and said, Joe, no, your ambition's not the important thing here. It's not. It's reckless for you to do this.
Right.
Mary Ellen, I think one of the problems here, on the whole, is that, as everybody said, as Mike just said, we love Joe Biden. Joe Biden's great. Joe Biden's a great guy. But, boy, he and his vice president aren't seeing eye to eye. He fired back on her. His team did. He and Nancy Pelosi are not even speaking anymore.
Right.
That's turned into a horrible thing because of what she had to do, which apparently now Kamala Harris agrees with her what she had to do to get him out of... They almost had to throw him out of the election. He's not on great terms with Obama, from what we hear, the guy he served under.
No,
that they're
because
not.
they told him the truth. They didn't want to hear it.
Right, but how great a guy is this? I mean, he apparently was a very stubborn, hard-headed...
Yes, I'm a little surprised because I always thought he was such a wonderful guy.
Yeah.
And I think that he might have been difficult, you know.
Sure.
You didn't hardly see Kamala Harris while she was vice president. She was not visible very much.
Yeah.
And he should have...
I think they were afraid of her overshadowing him.
Yes, that was probably it, because that's what happens.
But that's a telling section of this as well, and we haven't even read the full book, is where she says, I felt I had to show my loyalty again and again and again and again.
As vice president, right?
And you know, if I had been asked that question on The View that she was asked, I would have said the same thing, because you're not going to start a war right then and there. You're not going to say, you know, I would have done this and that and all the different things.
No, right.
It wouldn't have been right to say that.
Right, but I think the problem with that, and come to you in a second, Matt, I think the problem is, if you're saying this is the important election, if you're saying you're only given 107 days, if you're saying the guy who stayed in there and only gave you 107 days was reckless, well, listen, if you tick him off and lose, you tick him off and lose. You're going to tick him off now anyway by writing this book. It's only been a little bit of time.
You're going to tick off the people that really believe in him, too. That's what you don't dare do.
And lose an election
and
hand it to Donald Trump. Remember, for all the talk we say about, the Democrats lost this huge election.
But didn't that happen?
No. It was a very close election. It was a razor thin. It was not a massive groundswell of support for Trump. It was a razor thin election that we lost. And people make it sound like we got our clock clean. That is not what happened.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that it does come off a little like I couldn't have won. Couldn't have won because I was handicapped from the beginning. I was handicapped from the time I walked in that Oval Office.
Well, I know exactly how she feels. I think she's doing everything okay. She's saying how it really was now, and she has the right to do that.
But here's my question. If she was worried about, this is not ancient history, this is 2024, it's not even a year yet. If she was worried about ticking off the Biden people a year ago,
she was in the campaign then. That's different.
Yeah. So you think she just has no interest in running again for anything?
I have no idea what she wants to do, but if she had done this during the campaign, all the Biden people would have been on her. Yeah,
and it would have hurt other candidates down ballot. It would have been irresponsible.
Yeah.
Well, you were in the Clinton administration. There was no shortage of Clinton scandals when you were in the administration. Mm-hmm. I'm sure people tried to get you to say something. What do you think about the allegations of such and such? Mm-hmm. Right? And you, because you know your job, you probably had to bite your tongue quite a bit.
Well, I do think that's a little different though, because Bill Clinton was popular. Joe Biden was not.
No, but still, the people are not.
I think when you're getting 60% of the vote in your elections, you're unseating a sitting president, which Bill Clinton could do, and could talk his way out of anything.
Oh.
And Joe Biden shows up on television, and the whole party turns on him.
Yeah.
I think those are two different situations.
Well, his performance in that debate did that. I mean, we thought he was going to be great in the debate because he had such a good speech. Everybody was so proud of his speech. That made
Right, a little bit before that.
Yeah,
right,
right.
that's
the
right.
State of the Union.
Yeah,
But,
State
but,
That's right, yeah.
But Mary Ellen, if Bill Clinton had got up before the '96 election and he had just done something horrible and it looked as if he was going to lose the election, would you have defended him if you knew he was going to lose?
Well, it would depend on what the situation was.
Right. And I think that's what makes this a very unique situation. You know, it's not hard. I mean, we all know why the Republicans are supporting Trump. It's because it does them well in their reelection campaigns, so we think, until we find out differently.
I got to tell you, my neighbor across the street yelled at me and said, "You're going to be there another 4 years." I mean, this is while everybody was talking about whether he was going to make it or not. He said, "You're going to be here another 4 years." I was planting tulip bulbs out there.
And it's not like Bill Clinton was a popular president in his whole administration. When he was going into re-election, after all of the Monica Lewinsky and all of the other things, and all of the the whispers about what a creep he was in other ways that, as time has gone by, but we've come to realize were probably all absolutely true. But, he beat Bob Dole.
Monica came after Bob Dole, and it certainly didn't help Al Gore.
Oh,
right,
did he
Mary
come
Ellen?
to this? Oh, no, that's right. Yeah,
and you told the story recently, Al Gore didn't want.
No, he didn't want. He was so mad at Bill Clinton about that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
He was furious, and he didn't let him campaign for him.
No, I remember he was not on the campaign trail.
And I think if he had campaigned for him, he would have won.
Maybe.
And so there you go.
And again, talk about a close election, right? A few votes here and there, yeah.
Right. But there it was that, Clinton was not a liability. At some point, Biden became a liability. And I think that's why people don't understand why, if this was such an important election, most important election ever, why stand by this guy? Nobody else was standing by him. I mean, the senators were saying, listen, you've got to go.
Not everyone. Quite a few were in his camp. I have people now who are no longer my friends because I posted on social media fairly early, right? I think before that debate, actually, in the spring. That Joe Biden should continue his lifetime of service to the country by stepping down. At that time, it wasn't because I thought Kamala Harris should necessarily run, but that we should have a primary. There was all these wonderful candidates, Buttigieg and Elizabeth Warren, who probably is who I would have supported at that point. Let's have an open primary. We can't let Trump come back. Come on, people. And there are still people that I was close to politically who thought I was being horrible and disloyal, like many of us were.
Right, but I think the two things that are going to get wrapped out, her and then Matt have an opinion here, that this is sour grapes, that she's saying this to sell a book. I mean, look what the title is, 107 Days. And that, we're still litigating the last election. And that's what the book is 107 days, and this is why I didn't win. This is not her life story. So, what do you think, Matt?
Well, I think she's probably telling what she thinks is, her side of the story. But, at the same time, I think if you were to ask Joe Biden or anybody in the cabinet if they thought that they treated her poorly or anything like that, they'd probably say no.
Well, no, they said, their quote was, she is the main cause of her own problems. That's Biden's team.
But what is Biden's team? The man is an elderly man who has no place in public policy now. What is his team?
Right, but didn't we just say a second ago we can't knock him because he's...
Well, then, if he says...
Now we're saying he's crazy.
I'm not at all. But you were saying team. Like he's on a base, like he plays baseball. What is his team? He has no job.
Yeah,
I'm sure he's got publicity people.
I'm sure he's got PR.
If he said PR people whose job is to defend their boss.
Right.
If he said that, which he has not, If Jill said that, which she has not, I would give it some credence.
I'd love to see Jill on a talk show.
And why is
Oh no.
why is Kamala Harris not allowed to speak for herself? And God bless her to write a book. I hope she makes millions of dollars off it. She should.
Right, but I mean, I think the problem, with 2 minutes left to go, and we got a whole nother segment. I think the problem here is, what was she gonna say? It was my fault. I didn't win. You know, I think that this has happened before. Hillary Clinton wrote what happened after she lost in 2016. You know, it was the Russians. And maybe it was. I'm not saying these things aren't true.
I think it was.
I'm not saying that they aren't true. Comey.
And they underestimated the amount of racism in the country and all that.
But Comey, while people are voting, early voting, Comey comes out with that.
Stuff,
okay, and that's fine. And Hillary can write that book. And Kamala Harris can write this book. But the problem is, when you write a book of why I lost the election, which now they both have done, a lot of people go, sour grapes. It didn't do Hillary any good. I don't know if it'll do Kamala any good. We'll find out.
But
sell some books.
John McCain wrote a book after he lost too. And he made some money off it. Good for him.
But I don't think he trashed anybody, but Sarah Palin did, and we didn't hear a whole lot from her after that. All right, we're going to take a break and come back with much more. Maybe we'll write a book right after this. Don't go anywhere. Hey, Scott Spears here with 40th Treasurer of the United States, Mary Ellen Withrow, and Terry Tackett. As you can see, we are in the vault here at the Berwick in Greencamp, Ohio. Delicious, delicious pizza place. And the pizza has arrived. Pan down on that. Look at that delicious pizza there. Mary Ellen, we're sitting in the vault and we're about to have this pizza. How good does this pizza look?
Oh, it looks great.
Terry, what do you think?
Well, it looks awesome.
Did you get the chandelier here? This is what. Did you ever see any? Mary Ellen, all the vaults you've been in, did you ever see a chandelier like that in the vault?
Nope.
Yeah.
No.
We're going to try this pizza and come back and tell you what it was like here on WGH Talk. Hey, Scott Spears with Terry Tackett, 40th Treasurer of the United States, Mary Ellen Withrow. We're at the Berwick here in Greencamp, Ohio. The pizza was delicious. Terry, how was the pizza?
It was great.
Mary Ellen, how was the pizza?
I really liked it.
Worth $1 million to be sure. You'll enjoy it. Come over and eat in the vault. Hey, Scott Spears back with Matt Morgan, 40th Treasurer of the United States, Mary Ellen Withrow, and stand-up comic and comedy writer Mike Larsen, talking about a lot of things here. We can't not talk about this. 1 week ago today, we're taping this on Wednesday night, it'll be out on Friday, but 1 week ago today, Charlie Kirk was fatally shot, and the fallout in the last week, I mean, I'm not going to read every story that has happened in the last week, but we've had presidents of universities fired for making social media posts. TMZ has had to apologize for laughing in the background. NBC fired analyst Matthew Dowd for some comments. You look them up because they're not that large. The people on the House floor got into a fight moments after his death. Interesting time this week has been, this 7-day period. Matt, what do you can speak first on this one. What do you make of Charlie Kirk's death? Trump's going to attend the funeral. J.D. Vance hosted his podcast. His wife spoke on Friday night. What do you make of this whole Charlie Kirk situation? He's more popular now than he was before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
I had never heard of him.
Yeah, everybody has now.
I mean, it's rather unfortunate that that somebody disliked what he had to say enough to shoot him. But I mean, I used to watch Charlie Kirk a lot when I was younger, and still in school, and he was a lot more. I forget the word I used prior in the last time we talked about this, but he was a lot more moderate, I guess, more middle of the line.
What have you learned in the last week with this whole outpouring? Good, bad, ugly. The governor of Utah, where he was shot.
What I've learned quite a bit about about what.
Just about what society's all about. Where are we now? You know, everything that I just said. You've had people fired. You've had people removed off television. You've had a shouting match on the floor of the House. You've had the assertion that maybe we should build statues. You've had the vice president hosting a podcast. You have the president attending his funeral. His wife spoke 2 days after his death. The governor of Utah is trying to turn down the violence, the rhetoric. Wish I could find that quote, but
he's not.
Spencer Cox, Utah Governor Spencer Cox, has tried to lower the temperature by saying, you know, this is not
by making
radical
lies about the person who shot him by saying he's a leftist. No, Cox isn't turning down. He's saying, let's turn down the volume and let me lie about the person who shot him while I'm doing it.
And the other thing,
Hypocrites.
well, and also Pam Bondi, the Attorney General. Now she did have to walk this back, but I think it's important to mention. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, said free speech and hate speech are there, and hate speech. I'm trying to get what she said right. Hate speech will be targeted, and people will be gone after for hate speech. Now, she got blowback on that, and the next morning she said, I'm talking about threats. I'm talking about, you can't do that. I'm not talking about saying hateful things about people because that's
Charlie Kirk said that Michelle Obama and Justice Ketanji Jackson and Vice President Kamala Harris did not have the mental faculties to compete with a white man. That was not considered hate speech. Me saying that a right-wing bigot who has engaged in hate speech is not an American hero, according to Pam Bondi, is hate speech.
Here's, I think, the problem. Because the man was shot a week ago. I think if Michelle Obama, God forbid, or any of these other people were shot and killed in public, that's where we are.
He trafficked in hate speech. That is who he was. What his movement is. What turning point. What that funeral that they're having in the stadium. The rally that they're going to have. The fact that they say that if you call a fascist, you are engaging in hate speech, and yet you cannot. And then when you quote Charlie Kirk, who said horrible things, right? About Jews, about transgender people, about gay people, about women, about black people. That now is because he was a free speech activist. And I'm all for free speech. I think you should get to say whatever you want to say.
We're proving that here.
But now we have this, the government, people getting fired. I mean, J.D. Vance, I can't even use the words that.
You didn't watch his podcast? He did.
That little God.
He's a problem.
He's such a. I'll say wussy because the real word we're not supposed to say anymore. But the guy is just so damn punchable. And that the vice president is telling people to think on their employees. That if you work with someone who put something on social media that was not praising, this racist, then you should report them to management and get him fired. What kind of creep does that? That's just that's where it was horrible. We shouldn't be shooting each other, obviously, but of all these Republicans wringing their hands now, saying, "Oh, what's the problem here? Guns." High-powered rifles. This guy who was not a marksman by any shoot, right? He was not. He was a hunter, but he was not a marksman. He was not a sniper. He was able to hit a guy's jugular vein from 200 yards away purely because the weapons are so powerful now, and it's a computer scope and all of that. Clearly, that's the problem. But we don't talk about that. We're going to say that, because maybe someone he lived with might be transitioning? What? That has nothing to do with this.
Well, I think, though, we're in a... Mary Ellen, help. I think we're in... Well, what do you think?
Oh, well, all the things that have been brought up, and I just keep... in fact, I was talking to Matt about this on the way in. I said, he's probably going to be killed, put to death. And I said, I think I would prefer being put to death rather than to stay in prison my whole life.
But isn't Mary Ellen a part of this saying negative things about Charlie Kirk? And anybody, you can do that. That's fine. But isn't one of the problems most people are having with doing that right now is it's been 7 days. It's a horrible video that people have watched.
Yep.
And the man was 31 years old. He left 2 children behind under 5 years old. He left a wife behind. And that's a hard thing for a lot of people to take. And I think we have sayings in this society that don't speak ill of the dead. And I think...
Remember when Jeffrey Dahmer died and we weren't allowed to say bad things about him anymore? No! We were allowed to continue to say bad things about Jeffrey Dahmer.
Well, he committed
That's the way it works. If you are a horrible human being and you die, your memory should be that of a horrible human being.
Okay, Mary Ellen, what do you think about that? Is it because of the age and the children and being so close? I mean, we don't say horrible things about Martin Luther King, and I don't think we would tolerate it if people did.
Well, I think that they have gone way overboard on this. I mean, it's so much has been said, and other people have been shot. Like the policemen were shot today. There's 5 policemen shot.
Yeah.
And I said, now they're not going to talk about them. They probably all have children.
Of course.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah. And
the Speaker of the Minnesota Legislature. There was no flags at half-mast for a political suicide then.
No. Everybody has gone berserk over this, really.
But we, in a way, and I was trying to think of the last person who had a major following. That's I think, the big difference here. He did have a big following, who was shot like this, murdered. And the one who I could come up with was John Lennon. And John Lennon was shot right out in front of his apartment building in New York.
Yeah.
And people who didn't, and at that time, people forget, John Lennon was not a popular guy at that point. We were going to deport him. He was going to be deported. Now, he was political at that point in a way. He was very unhappy with what was going on, but people did not like that he was shot, and we had vigils and things.
The give peace a chance guy is equal to the black women don't have mental faculty to compete against white men?
Not equal. No. But when, unfortunately, the culture we live in, when somebody who's a Minnesota politician and only known there for the most part gets killed, it's not going to be national as when a national person is killed. That's the difference. That's why I think it's amped up 10 times more.
Yeah.
And that's why it's in everybody's face. And it is, you know what? It's hard to see a 31-year-old guy shot.
Of course.
It was
horrible. That video was horrible. And I feel for, well, I'm sorry that that just doesn't help the system to kill people. What it does, it requires good people now are losing their job, are getting, there may be other killings because of this. Mm-hmm. That's never good.
Yeah.
But to say that because this person whose entire life, he will say, the best thing I can say about Charlie Kirk is he believed in freedom of speech. Right? And now people are getting punished by our idiot vice president is telling people to think on their fellow employees, make them lose their job because they exercise free speech. That to me is a far greater threat to democracy and to our country than what happened last week.
I'm going to come to you, Matt, here in a second, because you actually listened to Charlie Kirk. I think the only one at this table who might have. but here's what I wanted to say, though. And I'm not comparing the two. I'm not making an equivalency here. But I do want to say that Martin Luther King, I mean, we have a holiday for the man. The man lived in people's lifetime. It's not the ancient past that he was assassinated in. But I do remember Martin Luther King was surveilled by the FBI, and we found out that he did have affairs, and that he was not I remember his wife was asked by the late Tom Snyder on a talk show, hey, the allegations have come out that your husband had affairs, what do you make of this? And she said, well, I know he loved one person and one person only. He was not a saint, but we don't talk badly about Martin Luther King Jr. today. We would get angry if somebody did. And again, these are not the same type of people. No, but I'm not saying. But I'm saying we do clean people up in death quite a bit. Matt, go ahead. Talk about Charlie Kirk. That's not the same thing. I know, Mike. I know.
Cheating on your wife is not the same as doing a national tour as a racist. Those are two entirely different things.
How do you see Charlie Kirk?
When I watched Charlie Kirk, that wasn't really his whole kind of thing. He was just, but I used to watch like Ben Shapiro and like Matt Walsh, that whole kind of.
And he was on Bill Maher Friday night. Good booking for Bill Maher on Friday was Ben Shapiro.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
there you go.
I watched it.
Oh, that was very good. Mm-hmm. I did watch that. Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
What do you make of the fallout in the last 7 days over his death? It certainly has been something.
Well, I mean, like I said, it's unfortunate that he was shot. I mean, we shouldn't go around. We shouldn't go around shooting people. So I mean, there's that. But I mean, I don't. When I used to watch his show, he wasn't as like. The reason I stopped watching that whole crowd of people is because when Donald Trump came into the picture, they shifted far right. The last I did watch a Charlie it was like a month old Charlie Kirk thing. He was, I don't know what college campus he was at. He was at a college campus. You know, that's where he does his thing at. And he had like some the debate about gun control, and he did go back to the more streamlined, mainstream, whatever you want to call it. He went back to a more moderate stance, but he also like he argued gun control and talked about how he thought that it wouldn't be a terrible idea to make it to where you had to like go take a class to get a license to get a gun. But then at the end of the whole like spiel he gave, he said, I actually think we need less gun control. Right. So it just, his whole thing just doesn't make a whole lot of sense anymore.
He also said that a few innocent people being murdered by guns is a small price to pay for the Second Amendment, which, you know, that says it. It's like, well, no, I disagree with that. Unlike Charlie Kirk, I believe that young mentally ill man should not have had a high-powered rifle. I think that society should have kept that person from having a rifle. Charlie Kirk disagreed with me.
It wasn't his gun.
And that's what happened.
It was his grandpa's hunting rifle. Now, I don't know.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the guns are the problem. And people like Charlie Kirk wanted more people who were emotionally unstable to have guns and to be able to walk onto college campuses with long guns and murder people. I oppose that.
I'm a big Second
yet
Amendment
I'm
fan.
the one who will be said that I'm somehow participating in hate speech for pointing out the difference in our opinions. You know, that's all. It's horrible that he was killed. That doesn't solve anything. You know, there's plenty of people that we don't like in this world and might even wish bad happens to them in some way. You know, we all do that, right? But no, there's certainly no excuse for that. I just think they're giving him military honors. You know, it used to mean something to go to the military. It doesn't anymore because we have idiots like Trump. You know, Mr. Bone Spurs is president now, but they're giving him full military honors. And he never served in those. That should be an insult to all of us. That is outrageous. That is ridiculous. Because he's a political hack, he gets full military honors.
And he uses the military the way he's using them.
Right, with Trump.
It's just terrible.
No, it's just so.
But don't you think, you know, I talked about this the morning after Charlie Kirk was killed. Don't you think that Charlie Kirk and most of these people, Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, the whole bunch, don't you think they're a show? You know, as Matt said, before Trump, Charlie Kirk was a different tone. And then it changed when Trump got in. And these college campuses, I mean, that's a shtick. That's a shtick. You know what type of questions are coming at you on these college campuses. You're there to, the debate. Prove me wrong.
Right.
This is a shtick. I'm not even sure Charlie Kirk believed half of what he said.
I don't think that's true.
No, yeah, I mean.
Well, maybe he did then.
I think he just.
I don't know.
I think he.
Regardless, it was irresponsible. If he didn't believe it, it's even worse because then it's really irresponsible.
I think he.
Yeah, but do you remember the New York Times article years ago when Glenn Beck was on there? He had been the entertainment reporter on CNN, and then he went over to Fox News, and all of a sudden he was the mad as could be conservative guy crying all the time, and he was interviewed by the New York Times, and the New York Times writer said, what do you say to people who believe everything that's on your show and believe everything you say? And he said they're idiots. Yeah. Because he knew he was doing a show. Glenn Beck knows he's doing a show.
Or Jerry Springer or whatever. Yeah,
I think Charlie Kirk in private life was probably a nice guy. I think he was doing a show.
What do you mean a nice? Sure,
I never met him.
I bet he was a good dad. I bet he gave his kids peanut butter and jelly, and I'm sure he kept them from running into traffic, and he taught them how to look both ways and how to wash their hands. Sure.
Right.
Yes, that makes sure. But he also spoke out, said blatantly racist things about the most accomplished black women in our country, and thought that was just fine. Yeah. And so, I'm sorry, That's not a good guy, whether you believe it or not.
It's not right, and I'm not saying it makes you a good guy to do that. What I'm saying is I think some of these people have learned how to make money and how to harness things, and I don't know if they do. I didn't say that saying it was right. I said I don't know that he believed everything that he said, and I don't know if he did. I really don't. Just like I don't believe Kamala Harris believed the stuff she said during the campaign, and now she said, well, that's true. I don't believe what I said. I'm not saying everything, but clearly her book is different from what she said during the campaign, and I think people say in the moment what they have to say to put, and
it is hateful.
No, it doesn't make it
people?
Right. No, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just
Kamala
saying
Harris has never been accused of saying something hateful that could lead to someone's death, like he has.
I will say that before Donald Trump came into the picture, Charlie Kirk, he never. I mean, all the I guess clips of the outrageous things he says. There were none of those when I.
That's what I'm saying. It's not.
I watched
but what was he, 17 then? Before Donald Trump came on the picture, he's only 31.
No, and nobody's saying that.
Right?
Saying
He's a high school
So
kid.
I mean,
you don't say racist things. You don't say hateful things.
But you do in Donald Trump's world, and you make. He's also this Turning Point USA is bankrolled by these huge right-wing. Tech people, right? They bankroll that because they want to get that message out, and he was an attractive package, right? He was a pretty boy, and he spoke well, and so they saw that as a vehicle.
I think he saw that.
Right. Now, if you're saying that he wasn't really a racist scumbag, he was only playing one on TV, that to me is what do they call that, a distinction without a difference or whatever.
Why I say that? I'll tell you why I say that. Charlie Kirk came. I had heard the name, but the only reason he came into my lexicon, it's odd timing. Remember this, Mary Ellen? A week before he shot, I brought you in, and there had been a story because we had done a lot on Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's engagement, and Charlie Kirk had done. Now this is not political. Right. Charlie Kirk had done a show on that, and what did he say? Taylor should submit to her husband.
Oh, yes. That was so disgusting.
But I think that was exactly the desired effect.
Yeah.
Is that political? No.
It's just a dumb thing to say.
Right, but it got him on the front page of the USA Today, and
it is political, right? Because that's the Trump administration's policy. That's what Pete Hegseth says, too, about women.
Right, but I think Charlie Kirk said it because Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift were the hot story that week, and he had to say something provocative.
And he's a misogynist scumbag who says things like that, yes.
So you think he would have said it even... Why didn't he say it before they were engaged? I think he said it because that was the news... Why didn't he...
Can I say it's only the first time I heard of Charlie Kirk, maybe a few years ago, I thought it was Kirk Cameron, the guy from Growing Pains, who's also conservative.
Well, he does some different things,
too. And at first I thought it was Kirk Cameron. And then it was like, oh, no, okay. So, yeah.
But I'm, again, not saying any of it's right, not saying any of this speech is right, and I don't know that it's right to hit the man the day that he died either. Some of the stuff that I saw on social media was horrible that people were writing about him.
I don't think people should say he got what he deserved.
Yeah.
But
I guess the point I'm making is, the first thing I thought was the only thing I had about him, which was the Taylor Swift story. And the Taylor Swift story to me was not tremendously political, but it got him in USA Today for the first time that I can remember. It got him on every news cycle. It got him on every news story. And he said it, I think, because he knew what that word... He's a 31-year-old man married with 2 kids. Now, does his wife submit to him? Highly unlikely. I think he knew that's the major news story of the week. What can I say that's going to get people angry? What can I say?
That's his job, to be provocative.
Right,
but I don't think he believes it.
Well,
of course he believes it. He
says
it.
I don't know.
I think he just plays.
I mean, I come on your show, and I might say provocative thing. I believe all of them. I don't just come here and shoot my mouth off without believing it. I assume all of us are speaking what we believe.
I think so, but I think as Mary Ellen said earlier, when there are consequences, as Kamala Harris, I'm not trying to liken it's just the things we've discussed this week. When Kamala Harris, when it came to an election, when it came to 107 days, she was not willing to be as honest as she is now. She didn't say this was reckless of my boss. She didn't say that he had a big ego. She didn't say that he was ambitious and it was him and his wife. And she didn't say I was uncomfortable for 4 years and I had to pledge my loyalty. But she's saying it now. So did she not believe that, or does she not believe this?
Well, I would have done the same thing she did. I would have not said anything bad about Joe Biden at that point.
Well, and I don't think Charlie Kirk should have said horrible things, and I'm not saying just because he didn't believe some of it doesn't make it wrong. All I'm saying is I think that people from now on should take a look at these people and realize these are shows.
But here's the thing, you are struggling to compare Charlie Kirk to someone, and so far it has been Martin Luther King, John Lennon, and Kamala Harris. Compare Charlie Kirk to someone on the left who is his equivalent. You're not going to be able to find one, because progressives are not that type of person. Even we have crazy, violent, left-leaning people. We do not give them $1 million super PACs. We do not fill stadiums to go see them because we are I'll say we're better people. We believe in empathy. We believe in equality, and diversity is a good thing. Only on the right do you say we have all sorts of violent, crazy people on the left. We don't worship them. On the right, they worship them. Fuentes and Charlie Kirk and these people. And that's why you're struggling to find someone who you can compare him to.
There's something I want to get in here, but didn't you, I mean, somebody you did work for, Bill Maher. Haven't you said many times on this show that Bill Maher doesn't believe a thing? Bill Maher believes what's best for Bill Maher. Bill Maher goes out there and says what is popular in the moment.
I didn't say he doesn't believe a thing. I say that Bill Maher is first and foremost a broadcaster.
It's a shtick.
He does he is first and foremost a broadcaster. He has beliefs, but he is not a...
But you don't think he believes what he's saying.
He's less political than he is a broadcaster.
But when we talked about
Charlie Kirk was not a broadcaster. Charlie Kirk was a political figure. I mean, his whole thing was right-wing politics. He said, right, the reason he, like so many of... the thing that awoken him politically, like it did so many of those people, was the first black president, right? He was a young person during Obama, and he hated that, and he felt that white people were getting a bum rap, and that white men were the most discriminated against group on the planet, which is just pure idiocy. And the right said, yes, let's build this guy up. Let's give him money and give him a bigger platform. The left doesn't do that. We don't do that with our crazy people.
But I think and again, I'm not saying it's an equivalent thing, but Stephen Colbert, I believe, believes what he says, and that's why he was fired, and that's the price you pay.
Yeah.
Bill Maher, you said, is not a Democrat. Bill Maher says he is a Democrat. I think Bill Maher goes and has lunch with the president because Bill Maher knows that's good for Bill Maher and his show.
And Ben Shapiro or whoever.
And Ben Shapiro's on. Does he believe
he's
that?
He's a broadcaster.
But does Bill Maher believe it? Does Bill Maher believe he's a Democrat? You say no.
Oh, I don't know what Bill believes, but I would say that Bill is closer to Larry King than he is to any politician. He is much more, like I say, a broadcaster. He has beliefs, sure, but they're not...
But Bill interjects his opinion, and I mean, his show is...
But you can't say that Bill is left or right when he is 100% in the bag for Israel, for instance. That's not a leftist position.
But do you believe he believes that?
That I know he believes.
Okay.
Because we had those arguments many times in the writers' room. But that's different. He is very much a broadcaster. And I will say this of Bill. I could never imagine Bill ever saying anything that would come close to being hateful or would spur violence against people or say that black women are genetically inferior to white men. You would never or whatever. I mean, there's a big difference between that level of hatred, and even if you didn't, and again, I think if you don't believe that, but someone says, I'll give you $100 million for your PAC if you say it, that would be even worse than saying it because you believe it, in my book.
Well, it could be, but and I think that's why people don't look at Bill Maher in the same light that Stephen Colbert is looked in, even though he's lost his outlet right now. Not looked in the same light that a Larry King has looked in, not looked at in the same light that a Barbara Walters, who were broadcasters.
Yeah,
I don't think Bill Maher's looked in that same light. I think he's looked at, he appeals to a certain group, he says what he says, and he yells at his guests, and he does his thing, and,
Most of the people I know who watch...
And by the way, Charlie Kirk was on Bill Maher's podcast.
Probably
They
was.
reran it. Now, he gave him a format. He gave him a forum. Now, is that a good idea for somebody who was so hate-driven and...
When I was a writer on his show, I would be one of the ones saying no.
Right. But he did.
But he did. It's his show. It wasn't mine. That's why I got fired from that show. I pushed back too much.
Matt, what do you got to say here? And I want to get this in.
Oh, just I mean, I only know like 2 or maybe 3 people, but the 2 people that I know for certain that watch Bill Maher, they both refer to him as a commentator.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's no.
Right.
I don't think he's Larry King. I certainly don't think he's Hugh Downs or Brian Gumble. I think he's a stand-up comedian.
Right. He kind of
He's-
came at it from comedy
yeah.
as opposed to news. Or
Right,
whatever.
right,
Sure,
right. And
yeah.
he's more like Colbert. I mean, they get up, they do a monologue, they have their guests, they have their
Right.
opinions.
And he likes poking the tiger. He's good at it.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
a
he's good,
talented
everybody does.
guy.
Popular show.
He has some good writers and all that. But yeah, it's different.
Yeah. But here we go. Hopefully, we got a little bit of time left here. Girl Scouts. We can all agree on Girl Scouts and be happy about the Girl Scouts. How about that transition?
That's a good one.
Yeah, Girl
Yeah.
Scout troops. There are 905 troops. Girl Scouts participate. 7,818 Girl Scouts participate in the cookie sale every year. Total cookies sold 1.7 million cookies. Each Girl Scout has an average of 22 packages sold every year. Girl Scouts donated
Really?
52,000 packages of cookies to Operation Salute local veterans partners. There are 9 varieties of cookies. And this coming year, there's a new cookie out, the Explore More, coming up in February of 2026. And they came and visited me.
Really?
Oh yes, the
And
Girl
what is
Scout.
it?
The Explore More is, what do we got here? It's chocolate, almond, and marshmallow flavored. The Explore
Sounds
More.
wonderful.
So we're going to try these because
Yeah.
you can't even get these. These aren't even available for. And Mary Ellen is a lifetime Girl Scout,
I am.
member of the Girl Scout. Yes. So
Were you a Girl Scout when you were young?
No,
Yeah.
I was
There you go,
made a
Matt.
Girl Scout when I was about 40.
Okay. So you didn't
go,
have to
Mariel.
sell cookies?
I would get in
yes,
there.
so one of these
I
Explore
would have
More.
loved to have you knock on my door as a 40-year-old woman selling cookies.
There you go, Mike. All right, let's get the review here real quick. The Explore Mores, with 1 minute left to go. The new Girl Scout cookie. Matt, how's the Explore More?
It's good. I
I
mean,
like
Good?
yeah, yeah.
Good? Mary Ellen, how's the Explore More?
It's good.
Good cookie?
Yeah.
Mike?
Delicious.
Delicious.
I think I'm still a thin mint person, but I could definitely. Yeah, these are great.
And Explore Mores will be on sale in February of 2026. And check out the Girl Scouts website to get the information. They will be there. Explore Mores 2026. All right. For Mary Ellen, Mike Larsen, Matt, we've had a good time this week,
Yeah.
and we're going to eat as we go off the air. Scott Spears heading for the dugout.